Welcome to my weekly review. Today is Saturday, September 6th. I am doing this video early because I got things to do today. But you're looking at a daily chart of the Nasdaq, which has had a 47% run, now 48% from the lows from Liberation Day of 14,784. It made a new high on Friday of 21,878, and then immediately reverse course there. And that's pretty common where you see an index making a new high, then you see some profit taking. There it is, a new high at the open after the week jobs report. And then you have profit taking and sellers into the weekend here. So this is normal action. The last time the Nasdaq made a high was at 21,803 on August 13th. And what did it do after that? Immediately reversed course and made a low here of 20,905. So 900-point drop. I'm not saying it's going to do that this time, but it's pretty normal that it makes a new high and you get some profit taking, especially on a Friday. I just want to point out that you have to have guardrails in the market, and we've had just to save you from losing a lot of money and being too arrogant. Uh, the Nasdaq has traded below the 21 three times in the last month. You can see there on August 1st and on August 20th, and then on Tuesday, September 2nd. So I go to yellow, from green to yellow. It's like when you're on the freeway and you're punching the gas the whole way, and then you come to a yield sign, you just maybe not tap the brakes, just slow down a little bit, caution, or maybe you're taking a turn, a sharp turn or something, and you have to slow down a little bit just to protect you because one of these times it's going to slice through like it did here, and correct a little bit. I'm not saying something like that. That's a 27% correction. So I have guardrails just to keep me from losing money. So I get cautious below the 21 and back above the 21. I become more aggressive and increase exposure to the market. So that's just, my thing. Some people, it's the 50. Some people, just at different tolerances. This green line here is the 5. It's been surfing the 5 for a while. And below the 5, maybe you want to be a little more cautious. It just depends on your tolerance. For me, it's the 21, which is this magenta line below it. I like to get a little more cautious, above it, more aggressive. So that's just me. So 3 times in the last month or so, I've been on yellow, even though, like I said, the market the Nasdaq made a new high on Friday. All right, 21,878, and then reversed. Okay, I just want to point out a couple of things here. September is supposed to be a tough month for, the market. And so far, 1 week now, the Nasdaq was up 1.14%. Now, I'm not saying, and a lot of people are getting on me because I do believe in seasonality because it's seasonality for a reason. It's the probability that September will be, weak. It's been weak for the last 5 years. So this year, maybe it's going to be strong this year. I don't know. You take it one day at a time, always. But so far, it's up 1.14%. It certainly could, sell off with a rate cut in the middle of the month. I don't know. Like I said, just take it one day at a time. But so far, the Nasdaq was up 244 points or 1.14% in the first 4 days of September. I also have to point out that, with the rate cuts coming, the more risky assets are doing better, outperforming. The IWM Russell 2000 was up 1.1%, while the SPY was up only a third of a percent, and the industrials was down a third of a percent. So just a little bit of perspective here as we head into next week and we get into the month of September. All right. Um, got to have those guardrails, right? Got to have them. The big news last week, I want to get to earnings, but I have to get to this Google decision from Judge Mehta. Very important decision. And I know some people are saying, well, short Google or sell Google because of the decision and went up so much in one day. But, it just depends once again on your tolerance. If you're a swing trader, yeah, take some profits. That's a big move, right? But longer term, I think this is good for Google and, their business. And you could see that had a heck of a week up, more than 10% on that news. And it followed through the big gap day there, 8% with, third of a percent move, and excuse me, three quarters of a percent move on Thursday, and it closed 99% of its daily range there. And then on Friday, followed through with more than a 1% move. So institutions are buying Google. You could see it had its big volume day here on Wednesday after that decision. So I just wanted to point that out. That was the big news event for the week in my mind, the landmark decision by Judge Mehta. I do want to get to some of the earnings reports from last week, some of the themes that are doing well. I don't want to look at stuff that's not doing well. We know a lot of stuff is not doing well. And then, some of the rotation plays that we've seen recently within tech, and then earnings next week, and then some S&P 500 inclusions. I want to start out with Zscaler though. They reported, and these stocks are all way overvalued. Okay, I mean I get it. People are saying, oh man, it's only got a couple billion in sales, and it's a 42 billion market cap. It's trading 20 times sales. I get it, but that's what it's been doing the whole time, right? And it's been performing well. Now valuations, it becomes a relevant? I don't know. I just think this thing's basing. The earnings were fine. It's growing, nicely. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with the report. It's a pricey stock, no doubt about it. Macy's, not a pricey stock. They reported and had a nice response with big volume. So good for them. And that carried some of the other, always look for auxiliary plays, right? And that carried some of the other department stores like the dentist, Dillard's, man, had a nice move as well. Anyway, I digress. I want to get to some of the other earnings reports. Last week, Credo, nice report, nice response, crested 140 on Thursday, closed above 140 on Friday. Nice move for Credo. That is one of my stocks on the leading stock list. And yeah, with this type of triple digit growth, it's hard to say anything bad about that stock that's performing well. Sienna, fiber optic company, fiber is good for you. Had a big move on earnings and just an inside quiet day on Friday. It's going to allow this, looks like the 5 EMA to catch up. But that's definitely one of those gapper plays that you want to, that I have been monitoring for a while now. And there's a lot of them. Yeah, yeah, a lot of them, including Reddit and ALAB and some others that I've been monitoring. A lot of biotech stocks with gaps. But anyway, I digress. I'm just, jumping around here, different companies reporting different days, but I cannot miss on Lulu because they were down 18%. Obviously, the barriers to entry are not, as substantial here. Anybody can make, $200 yoga pants. But it's been a very successful company for many, many years. But they're running into trouble now with, competition. The CEO had a litany of excuses, including tariffs, the Canada tariffs. But when CEOs start making excuses, that's when you run for the hills. There's no reason. I had a friend who wanted to get long that we got long this stock. I said, why? It's in a clear downtrend. You don't want to fight this trend. Just like when stocks are in uptrends, you want to ride the uptrend. When stocks are in a downtrend, I mean, these are the types of stocks you want to short. I mean, clearly there's sellers here. But I don't want to beat up on Lululemon. It's been a good company, but yeah, just it went up the mountain. Now it's coming down the mountain. That's about it. One that I did, on the positive side was Broadcom broke out of that 317 little consolidation period following an earnings report where the CEO said that a secret or a mystery $10 billion, new customer, but broke out of that base. If you're a Darvis type trader, that would be a buy sign. Let me see here with Broadcom. Oh yeah, if you had the September 5, 325 calls into the earnings report, they were like $2 on Thursday and they opened up over 25 on Friday. So that will boost your portfolio performance if you want to take a risk. It's like, it's like a lotto ticket, whatever you bet, you're going to lose if it goes the other way, like a Lululemon, or if it just stays flat. But this one happened to jump. So, yeah, some people won on that stock. GWRE, Guidewire, this one jumped nicely 20%. Another one, earnings gap that you got to pay attention to there, that 263 area is a point of interest, but it had a 20% move with that type of volume. You want to pay attention to that. Shoe Carnival, another, this is a retail stock, obviously, sells shoes, and I had a nice move here, breaking above the 200, and then on Friday, traded another high here above the Thursday high and close, above the 200. So looks decent for Shoe Carnival. And before I get to some of the negative ones, I got to go to the Sydney Sweeney. She's doing wonders for American Eagle. They reported the stock popped 38% with volume, 600% above average daily volume, then followed through on Friday. Not bad. Hey Dude brand, Crocs hired her for Hey Dude, and it didn't work out for Crocs. They hired her about a year ago, and they didn't, let me see, the marketing people just botched it. That's all I could say. And then AEO knew how to market Sydney Sweeney. Obviously, it's a sex appeal. And, you show a little skin and you get a little more action. That's all I could say. Okay. Um, Cleavage works, folks. All right. Salesforce, sorry, Mark Benioff. He's comparing himself to Palantir. Just stay in your own lane. This thing's in a clear downtrend. They reported, 10% sales growth, which is better than single digits. 14% earnings growth, guided down though, so that's the problem with Salesforce. It sold off pretty sharply on Thursday. Yeah, nearly 5%. IoT, Samsara, another one that reported and on Friday had a nice move of 17%. That's not an earnings gap to me. It's just trying to it's been wallowing in a downtrend here, you can see. But maybe it can start in its break out of this stage one base and into an advanced phase of stage two. We'll see. And then BRZE, this is the last one I'm going to cover for earnings. They reported, accelerating sales growth. They're going from a company that was losing money to a company that's making money, being profitable. So, yeah, positive. And we've seen a lot of enterprise software companies just get hammered. And you can see this clear downtrend recently as the narrative is AI is going to take over all these software names. Oh man, that's my first cup of coffee. All right. Now I'm going to get to some themes, and you got to have some gold, folks. I don't know what's going on here with gold, except for that all of the gold stocks are trading higher. I mean, I could put 20 stocks in a hat and pull one out, and it's going to be up 50, 60, 70% or more in 2025. DRD is another one. If I just go to the click, yes, it's up 171% in the last year or so. And I could click on 20 other stocks and be similar type of action. So I don't recall a bull market where gold was the leading group. And that's happening this year. So it kind of concerns me a little bit, but you just got to go with it, right? This is what's working. We don't try to make the rules. We just play by them and we play the hand that we're dealt. And you never count your cards while you're sitting at the table. Now, this is AGI. Another one, I put this one on my ready list last week, one that actually worked out for me. Um, I'm not going to get into my trades last week, but I will say that one worked. Had a good week. The weekly review kind of breaking out of a base here. The one that didn't, though, was MP. Man, what happened to MP? Down 11%. Shame on me for picking that one. It was announced Friday that it was going into the S&P Midcap 400, I believe. So maybe it'll get a boost. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. I'm on gold. Kinross Gold, one of the top performing stocks in 2025. Just surfing the five like Kelly Slater. These things are like so easy. I mean, I finally had to break down and buy one. It's just ridiculously easy. Just, buy on a pullback, or buy on a rip and buy the dip. Just buy some gold. They're going higher. The commodity itself is near $3,600. But for somebody like me who had those Krugerrands back in the 80s when they were like, I don't know, 600 bucks, 500 bucks. And now an ounce of gold is what, 3,600? It's pretty crazy. Anyway, I'm gonna get off my gold kick and move on to drugs because I like drugs, stocks that is. CY TK had news last week. There was a Cantor conference last week, and there was a lot of news. I'm not going to get to all of them, but a lot of stocks in biotech have been popping, been really strong. This one's no different. And there's another conference this week. I forget which one. Is it Baird or Wainwright? The Wainwright conference. So maybe we'll have more news. But these stocks have just been doing well. I'm going to go through them quickly because I know people don't want to entertain drug stocks, but you can see this one at 3 weeks tight, moving higher. That's RNA. INSM, this one's been on fire. You can see Kelly Slater stock just up every week. They had recently had an approval for a drug, FDA approval. MDGL, another one. I got to go to the weeklies on these because it's a weekly review and it kind of shows you a different perspective. Base on base pattern. Now it's just trading higher. A lot of these Hallow. This one has real nice fundamentals. Halozyme Therapeutics. I'm still kind of a fundamental guy, even though I do trade technically. Yeah, I mean it's got sales and earnings growth, so that kind of gives you a reason. You could see this earnings line heading due north. They're expected to earn what, more than $6 this year. So yeah, it's not an expensive stock here at $75. Breaking out of a base, you can see the base on base pattern. So that one looks good. ABVX, this one is high tide flag pattern. Seeing a lot of these high tide flag patterns work. I should probably do a video on high tide flag patterns and put it in the education center. Just do a brief one of about 10 stocks because they are working. You can see that one on the weekly trading at new highs. And look at this, just gapped higher. News made that little flag pattern, 67 to 88. Thank you very much. We'll take that. That one's on our relative strength list that I post every morning at mcstockcharts.com. IONS. Another one gapped higher. And now flagging a little bit. See what that looks like on the weekly. Yeah, that's a nice breakout. 44% move on the week. That'll help the old portfolio equity curve. United Therapeutics, they had news. I think it was FDA approval. But yeah, they came out Tuesday, made a big rip. And now, all it did is allow the five to catch up. It pulled back below the low of the gap day, 402, but, it's at 400. It's allowing the five to catch up, which, that five, if you look at there, it's what, 376? And, a day earlier, it's 364. 356 are going up 10, $12 a day. So it'll catch up in a hurry at that rate. What else do I have? Oh, Nectar had news Friday, I believe. Yeah, breaking out of a base. That one looks good. Let's see what this one looks like on the weekly. Yeah, 35% move. Thank you very much. So don't be afraid of these, man. These biotech stocks, I know they blow up and you get an FDA rejection, but man, 124% in a week, that'll certainly help your equity curve. Yeah, but they move on news. I get it. And the news could go the other way, right? And then you end up in the outhouse. And we don't want to be in the outhouse. AQST, this is a lower price stock, but you cannot help the breakout here. Once again, they had a letter from the FDA saying they no longer need any more, consultation or any more proof of their drug. So essentially FDA approval news, and this thing gapped higher and then rallied 7% on Friday. So a nice follow through move after a 28% move. 28%. Let's see what that looks like on the weekly. Yeah, that's a nice breakout here. And the earnings line's going down, but with approval, you hire a sales and marketing team. It costs a little bit of money to launch a drug, but that earnings line's eventually going to go north and possibly more attractive for a takeover buyout, 44% on the week. That'll certainly help your equity curve. All right, enough of the drugs. I got to get off the drugs. I need to go to the Betty Ford Clinic for drug abuse. This is Mr. Cooper Group. Now, Rocket is buying these. The deal's going to close in Q4. So what, next month or November, October, November? Broke above a downtrend line. This thing's been super strong. I mean, since we got liberated, I mean, just straight up. Uh, pulled back to its 21, actually undercut it like the Nasdaq on Tuesday, rallied back above the new highs. But if you just look at the weekly here, it's just straight up. It's like It's like a rocket. Rocket bought it. And like I said, the deal's going to close. This thing to me still looks like, and this is why you got to look at weekly charts because to me, this thing looks like it's still like consolidating in a base with maybe 21 would be your trigger. And I'm seeing a lot of stocks like that. I'm going to get to some of them here in a little bit. But yeah, I think as I go through charts and I was having a hard time the last couple of weeks finding, stock setup in bases. But as I switched over to the weekly charts, some of those leading stocks are looking a little better. Rocket being one of them. Lending Tree, just a monster. Yeah, breaking out of a base 3 weeks ago, and then 2 weeks had kind of like a quiet week, and then last week up nearly 6%. And when I show that one, I have to show SoFi. This one, yeah, consolidated in the base, and it's just been since we got liberated here. Went from what, 8, maybe even lower, up to 25. So that's a nice three bagger, nice move for SoFi. All right, that's enough of the financials. Except for I have to go to Schwab. I put Schwab on my Reddit list last week and immediately sold off. After the jobs data on Friday, and I saw quite a few stocks that look like this just completely wiped out on Friday. I mean, a 6% move to the downside. It's big. You can see how tight this thing trades, and all of a sudden you get this one big bar on the based on that data. All right, I digress. I'm going to move on. Um, Okay, I'm gonna get a little melancholy here, a little sad. My GEV made a high here, broke out, obviously ran up to 677, and you loved it at 677, or if you liked it at 677, you should love it at 582, but maybe not. The low on Friday was 565, and that thing could come back to 500. Once they start trending lower, you never know how low they're going to go or how long this is going to last. It'll probably form a base, something similar to that. And it's going to take some time. But, institutions like this one, and it will be bought eventually. But, this is one of the leading groups, and this is one of the leading stocks in a leading group. You can see the number 2 ranked group. Um, yeah, and it's just made a big run and needs to consolidate. That happens with stocks, right? They make big moves and there's going to be some profit taking, some selling going on. This to me looks like a kind of a double bottom here, even though it made a high. And we'll see what type of base this thing forms here. LEU, that is, I believe, the top performing stock in this group. OKLO, again, just consolidating in a base back to the 50. No great shakes there. The one that's leading now is BE, broke out of a base and just ripping higher, surfing the 5 like Kelly Slater. Yeah, just ridiculous move here. It's been up 8 weeks in a row, something like that. Big blue volume bars there. So that's not Aunt Sally buying that stock. Another, top group here with the gold and the energy. Yeah, they've just been leading all year. All right, that's enough of that group. Another group that's been doing really well is EME, and I showed this one first. This is one that was announced Friday after the close. I'll get to that in a minute. They're going into the S&P 500 on Monday, September 22, but it's just consolidating in a base there. I'll get back to that one later. IESC, another one of those leading stocks. You can see it's top 6 ranked. I think it's top 3 performer, top 4. Consolidating in a base here, 370 to 309. And another one in this group. Let me see. What else do I have in this group? Oh, IBP. This is one that I put on my regular list 2 weeks ago. It didn't do anything. And then last week had a nice week. I'm always, too early. Yeah. Up nearly 5% last week. But you can see this big consolidation here. And the week that I put on my regular list, it was a loser. It happens. You need a little bit of a shakeout, probably needed a little more of a shakeout. Um, it was down 4% that week. But we came in on Monday and this thing, or excuse me, Tuesday, and this thing had a big shakeout down to 251. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it rallied back up to 274. So that's a nice $23 move for IBP. And that's a real strong group. All right. What else do I have here? Oh, can't go too far without the housing stocks. These things look beautiful. I wouldn't be surprised. It was when we get our rate cut on the 17th, and I'm pretty sure it's a stone cold lock. I should never say that. In the stock market, anything can happen, but these things are looking beautiful. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a rate cut, if they had a, sell the news event where it forms a handle here and shake some fools out. But they all look the same. Pulte looks the same. GRBK. This is a Southern small niche market home builder. Yeah, these cut patterns look really nice. Taylor Morrison Homes. This one looks nice. A couple others that I haven't looked at in a while. Lennar, little deeper cup. KBH is kind of like a lower end homes. Yeah, a little deeper cup. So that's why I like in this group I like DR Horton. It's the largest market cap one at 54 billion. Anyway, that's it for me. Oh, that's right. I got to get to some software names. Software design company Unity making a nice move last week, up 11%. Software has been really hit. Enterprise software. This is software design. Autodesk is yeah, doing well. They had an earnings report the prior week, went up nearly 9%, but yeah, just consolidating in a base. That one looks pretty good right there. And oh yeah, well, I have to mention these S service as software as a service stocks just been getting absolutely hammered. This is service now. I showed you Salesforce earlier. Oracle, I know it's not a software name. People give me a hard time. It's a data center play. Well, every company's a data center play nowadays. Seems like it. It only seems like it. I get it. Much of the revenue is still software, but they are pivoting to data centers. So, but still in a downtrend, and a lot of those data center companies are in downtrends, like the software group. Vertiv, this one's been selling off. So software has been tough, and the data centers has been tough also. Oracle reports this week. I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, I mentioned at the top some rotation. We're seeing some rotation, out of these hardware names. Oh gosh, what was the Ababa had the big chip announcement a couple weeks ago. And NVIDIA, nothing big, just consolidating below the 50 now, but it's been down 4 weeks in a row here. Yeah. So, it's just temporary sell-off, just forming bases. AMD doing the same thing, down 3 weeks in a row. You can see the volume drying up there. Of course, last week was only a 4-day week, but now it's below the 50. So these are definitely being sold. Palantir, I mentioned the software names selling off. This one is kind of squatting here at the 50. I don't like this look at all. Looks like a bear wedge pattern here. Yeah, and eventually, if they can't bounce off the 50, it's probably going the other way. So I'd be watching that 142.34 if I own that one. If I got it. I took it off my leading stock list this week. I think I put it on about April 19th at around $60, and it ran up to what? 190. So it was a good move for Palantir, but man, I do not like the looks of that chart pattern. But it's a pattern, it's just a pattern. GEV, I mentioned this one earlier. That one's selling off. Robinhood, this one's been just consolidating, 117 to 101, not going in the right direction, but it did have a 290% move, and you can see that on the weekly, just a rocket. And I've been talking about these flag patterns recently that have been working, and this definitely qualifies here. 290% move now. It's been consolidating for about 6 weeks, so Robinhood would definitely be one to watch. I'm going to get more on that later on, but anyway, where have they been, and by the way, yeah, I use guardrails, and to me, if it slices at 21, I would definitely trim some, if not all, and it slices to 50, it's adios muchachos in this market. And that's what you got to use guardrails, because you don't want to have something where it really sells off and you really get hurt. You got to protect your capital, protect your profits. Okay, so I mentioned the stocks that are being sold within technology. What's being bought? Well, I mentioned Credo earlier. This one's definitely being bought. Celestica, definitely. I think Sanmina is in this group as well. Yeah, that one looks pretty good. And FN, yeah, Electrical Contracting Manufacturing Group. So they're gravitating or rotating towards These names, this is ALAB. Now, these guys are now eligible for the S&P 500. So you're going to start hearing this company being mentioned. And I like it above that high on Thursday as it breaks above the downtrend line, ALAB. And if we got to look at the weekly, this is a weekly review. Nice setup here and then breakout. Once again, it's got this flag pattern, right? Seeing a lot of this. I am going to do a video on flags. I mean, this one went from what, 47 to what, 200. So nice move there for ALAB. What else? Oh, Reddit. Yeah, Reddit's another one. I got to go to the weekly chart on this because I know people saying, oh, it's extended, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at a weekly chart, you could just say this has just been consolidating in a base, right? Sold off. All the sellers that wanted out got out. Then it ran up, and now it's doing this flag pattern again here. You could say that's like a handle. Either way, Reddit's being bought. It was only up 6.6% last week. Thank you very much. Finding support consistently, at the 21 here. So yeah, Reddit's another one they're buying. And I mentioned earlier, instead of, buying GEV, they're buying Bloom Energy. So just a rotation within the, AI data center kind of plays. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up, except in honor of the great Steve Jobs. I have one more thing. This is kind of it seems like a long weekly review. Uh, CASY reports earnings on the 8th, which is Monday. If today's Saturday the 6th, the 8th is Monday. So they report Monday. I mentioned Oracle earlier. They report Tuesday. We'll see what they have to say about their data center play. Synopsis, they report on Tuesday. AVAV reports on Tuesday. And one that I'm really interested in is Rubrik. It's been consolidating since, ran from 47 to 103. And after the earnings report, it was sell the news, right? It's got nice numbers, accelerating sales growth down here. You can see from 35 to 47 to 49. You got accelerating earnings growth. And that's what Wall Street wants, right? So they're going to have to deliver the goods. Another one of these expensive stocks, but I think if they deliver the goods, this consolidation pattern will resolve to the upside. We'll have to wait and see, though. I do own a little bit of Rubrik. CHWY reports Wednesday morning for all you dog lovers or pet lovers, I should say. Oxford reports Wednesday, I believe. Kroger, the Gougers, they report, and then Adobe reports. All right. I mentioned at the top the S&P 500 inclusion was announced on Friday after the close. App 11 got in. This is not a reason to buy a stock. If you own App 11, you should own it for the fundamentals or the technicals. I mean, it looks great both ways. It's got tremendous sales and earnings growth, and it's been in a clear uptrend. How do I know it's in an uptrend? Well, the 5 is and the 21 and the 50 are trending and stacked in the right direction, right? Lower left to upper right. And the stock's finding support at the 5. Now that's technically it looks good. Fundamentally, it looks good. S&P inclusion, not a reason to buy a stock, but it's probably going to get a 5 to 10% pop when it gets included on Monday, September 22nd. Robinhood got in as well. Long time coming for Robinhood. I mean, I don't see how XYZ got in before Robinhood. Coinbase in recently, Interactive Brokers recently, but Hood announced and it was up 6%. Like I said, it's probably a 5 or 10% pop on these by September 22nd. If you like the stock for the fundamentals, technically it's in an uptrend. Even though it's closed below its 50, it's still in an uptrend. Um, and the last one was EME. Got in, not such a big move for EME, a slower moving stock, but you could see it's still in an uptrend, consolidating within a base. And if we look at the weeklies, yeah, you can see that base there. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up. Have a great weekend. Good luck. We'll see you next week.